All right, so Ms. Brown Roberts, let's just go ahead and plan on recording, and
Okay,
then
yep.
I can send it out or post on our YouTube channel. That
Okay.
way we will be able to go ahead and mind people's times.
Okay, I have it recording right now.
Okay. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Um, So first, I just want to welcome everybody for coming tonight. We are here to talk about the Georgia milestones, what it is, and how you can help your child with the milestones. In the chat, I'm going to go put a couple links in the chat that we'll discuss towards the end, which are useful resources in which you can use in order to support your child with the milestones that are coming up. There are various things, and again, we'll talk a little bit more about those at the end, but I wanted to go ahead and put them in the chat for everyone as needed. So today we're going to talk about what the Georgia Milestones is, the dates of administration, the assessment and design and item types, review the achievement levels, and then I will give you some helping sources for your child at home. And again, welcome to everybody that was able to join us and those of you that are viewing on the recording. So an overview, what is it? It is an assessment that we give to our third, fourth, and fifth graders and including AVA students. In the past, we have had students that attend school virtually, but are still part of Bolton Academy. This year, we actually don't have any, so there will be no AVA students coming to our building. The test for third graders will be ELA and math. The test for fourth graders will be ELA and math. And the test for fifth grader, ELA, math, and science. So science is only given to our fifth graders. So their testing dates are a little bit longer. We are going to begin the assessment on April 29th, and it will go until May 10th. We typically try to test in the morning and then do makeup days on non-testing days, so students don't have to take too many assessments on one day. The assessment will take place in a child's homeroom classroom unless a child receives accommodations such as small groups or extended time. Then those students are typically pulled out with a known teacher for their assessments to be taken in a separate classroom. Why do we do it? We want to know what students have learned this year. We've been working hard to teach them. And so the idea behind the assessment is to figure out how much they've learned of their grade level standards this year. And the test is based on the Georgia Performance Standards. We do take the test online. There is not a paper pencil option that ended several years ago. So unless a child has an accommodation for a paper pencil test, we will take those online. The Friday before our break, we actually took a simulation. So students got to play around in the assessment platform and know what it looks like. And that's especially helpful for our new students and our third graders so they can see, gosh, what is this day going to look like? How do I sign in? What does a testing ticket look like? And so that allows them time to get to know what might be happening on the day of the assessment and really take away that fear and anxiety around what's going to happen. So here's our schedule. So we actually start on the 29th and third and fifth grade begin on the 29th. We only take one test a day. We used to take a bunch more and it ended up for a really, really long day. But now we only take one assessment a day. And so we take one every day for the entire week. We begin the assessment around 8:30. So please, please, please make sure to get your kiddos to school on time for those assessment days. So third and fifth grade starts on the 29th. They'll run the entire week. On the 6th, fifth grade will have science and they'll take two parts of science that week. But on the 6th, our fourth grade starts and then makeups begin for our third and fifth. And then at the end on the 13th, 14th, fourth grade will have makeups. Again, we try our best to limit our testing from the 29th to the 10th because we know we're getting towards the end of the year and field day happens and celebrations happen. And so we want to make sure that students are ready to enjoy the end of the year and take a deep breath. A letter will be coming home next week with all these dates and information as well for you. So how is the test constructed? So there are 3 ELA sections. The first one is the longest one. It's about 70 to 90 minutes, and that's because it involves the writing portion and it's a larger constructed response. The next two ELA sections are a little bit shorter at 60 to 85 minutes. And those are consistent of mostly multiple choice test questions and enhanced technology questions. And so they are a little bit shorter. If students have to write in those sections, it's a much shorter writing test, so maybe a paragraph. Then we go on to math. There are two sections of math, and those are 60 to 85 minutes. And then the science ones are shorter at 45 to 70 minutes. So the purpose of the GMAS, it's to provide information on how well a student is doing on the standards. It gives information to the students, it gives information to the parents, but it also gives information to the school. So if across the board we're lagging in an area, we know that's an area that we need to teach better the next year or skills that we need to shore up in the next year. So we look at the information school-wide and we look at the information student-wide, and it really helps us prep for the next year. But for parents and for teachers, it lets you know how much of the actual curriculum a child has learned. So how do we prepare? We actually prepare every day. Consistent learning every day is how we are ready for the milestones. We have our daily curriculum. We have our win time, which is our what I need time, which is our 30 minutes of intervention or extension time every morning at 8:15. We use map data to find out where a student needs more support. We follow the schedule, so we make sure to teach all the content areas every day. We use those computer-based supports like iReady, MobyMax, RazKids, etc., in order to provide additional intervention time. And then in the classroom every day, we run small group lessons, again, to help shore up missing concepts or to better delve into the concepts that we need to go into. So every day we are preparing. This is not a cram for the test type test. This test, again, is to let us know how a student is doing on the things they were supposed to learn this year. So the assessment features. So in ELA, we have shorter open-ended questions called constructive responses. And then we have longer writing components where a child has to read 1 to 2 passages, depending on their grade level, and write about those passages. We have technology enhanced items in math and science. And we'll talk more about those in a minute of what those look like. But the technology enhanced items are like drop and drag, answering multiple questions. They're not as technology based as you would think. They're kind of what things kids are used to doing on a computer or almost within video games at this point in time. It is norm reference, so there is a national comparison on how a child is comparing to other students in the nation. There are multiple choice questions, and again, it is an online assessment. So these are technology enhanced questions. The first one is a drop down selection. So you'll see that a question is given. This is an example of a more of a middle school, 5th grade type question because they're talking about cells. But it will give multiple choices and they drop down and complete the sentence with the information provided. You'll see in math, there's some graphing questions where they'll actually have to draw lines or plot something on a graph. And then in the last one, you'll drag answers. So if you look at this research question, you would look for searched items. You're actually going to pull that information up to the top. Again, we did have a simulation last week where students were prompted through each one of these types of technology enhanced features. So they all had practice with that. And over the next couple of weeks, we are going to support students on the Georgia Learning Experience where they will have more opportunity to experience these technology featured questions, because what we don't want them to do is miss questions, not because of their knowledge, but because they don't know how to use a test. And again, this is very important, especially for our 3rd graders who haven't taken the test before, or students that haven't been in public school in Georgia to take the Georgia milestones. So ELA GMAS content areas. So what it focuses on is key ideas and details, writing, language, craft and structure, and that is that kind of the writing piece, the integration of knowledge and ideas, and then vocabulary acquisition. Those are the big pieces that will be found in the GMAS content area. And again, that is the way our standards are defined. And so each one of those areas under third, fourth, and fifth have very relevant and specific things that we're looking for. All that information can be found on our Georgia standards on the Georgia DOE standards website. But what does it look like? So again, we've got 3 sections for our ELA test. The first section is that extended writing response, and that usually is an informational or opinion writing. And in that, they have to take information from the text, either create an opinion about the information or write about the information that was provided with the prompt that was given. There's also 1 or 2 multiple choice questions with that, just to make sure that they understood the reading of the passage. Sections 2 and 3, you'll find more of those multiple choice and technology enhanced items and small constructive responses. You'll also see extended construction response in that. That's usually probably a paragraph or so of writing, and that usually revolves around a narrative writing piece. So again, there's 3 sections. In these sections, we have 1 that's writing and 2 that are more multiple choice based type sections. In our math, again, we have our big content areas. We have numbers and operations, which has to do with fractions. We have numbers and operations base 10. We have algebraic and operational thinking. We have measurement and data and geometry. Again, those are our big buckets of what we're looking at in math. And each grade level has its own standards underneath each one of those areas. Math is a little bit more simple. There's 50 questions per section, and there's 2 sections. There's typically around 42 selected responses. That's the fancy way of saying multiple choice questions. And then about 8 technology enhanced items. Those technology enhanced items are usually weighted a little bit higher because there's multiple responses in them. So there might be 3 answers within 1 question versus 1 correct answer. So know that those do count a little bit more, but there's typically around 50 questions in that section, and they have about 60 to 85 minutes in that section. For science, the science is broken down into earth science, physical science, and life science, with the heaviest aspect on life science and physical science. So again, these are the 5th grade standards. I put the standards up here for this one because it is very specific to 5th grade. And again, in this section, there's about 38 questions. There's 2 sections. Again, 30 questions are typically around those multiple choice questions, and 8 questions are those technology enhanced questions. And as you notice here, those technology enhanced questions, again, are worth a little bit more points because they are multiple response questions. So that's what the test is. So it's pretty much made up of those multiple choice technology enhanced responses and some writing. Years ago, there used to be writing on the math portion. That's been taken out, and those enhanced items have instead been put in. So when it's all done, and typically when you get your report cards that are mailed to you at the end of the year, you will get the information on how your child performed on the milestones. It is typically predictive information. We don't have all the data in, so you'll get most of the information. But in that document, you'll find out whether your child is a beginning learner, a developing learner, a proficient learner, or a distinguished learner. So a level 1 means that the child probably still needs some support. Developing means that they need some academic support. They're starting to get grade level content, but we need to keep a watchful eye on those students. Proficient learners means they're ready for the next grade. So a level 3 says, hey, let's go on to the next grade. And a distinguished learner means they're very prepared for the next grade. They showed advanced proficiency on the grade level material. There is talks right now that the DOE is changing the names of the levels. So the report may look a little bit different. And when we get that information towards the end of the year, if I need to do a loom on how to read the reports, I will send those out to you as well. This is the way the report looks. And so again, those little bars represent level 1, 2, and 3. And that will tell where the child is scoring. It will also give you the scaled score, which is the actual, not percent, but how the student performed in those levels. And so you'll get a graphic with information along with how the student performs. So on this page, 1, 2, 3, 4, again, as we come closer to the reports being given out, I will share more information on how to read this document because I know it can be confusing. This next page gives you the scale score. It gives you how a child is performing. So again, in each section. So in reading and vocabulary, how they did on key ideas, how they did on craft and structure, how they did on vocabulary acquisition. And so instead of just having that 1, 2, 3, 4 as the overall picture, this breaks it down into domain performance to show you how a child did. This is in the area of reading. So here's an example. You'll see at the bottom that you'll have the writing scores too. So that extended response, that's in informational and expository, that's a 7-point essay. So you'll see that there's 4 points for ideas, organization, and coherence, and 3 points for language uses and conventions. And then that narrative writing piece is a 4-point response. And so it is worth less points. But again, that writing piece is a huge component into the reading piece. So I just wanted to point that out that we do look a lot at writing. One of our big pushes in the last 2 years has to make sure that we give dedicated writing time so that our students are able to perform and excel in the writing domain and on their writing standards and become better proficient writers. Because obviously what we want children to do is be literate so they can read, speak, and write in the languages they learn in. Another interesting thing that happens at the end is you will get a child's lexile level, and that basically gives you their overall reading level, so where they are able to function independently in the classroom. Their national percentile rank, so how they perform based on all the other students in the United States, not just Georgia. And then you'll see at the bottom how the child performed based on the school system and state compared to other students. So you get lots of information here. So how your child is doing, how your child compares to other Bolton students, how your child compares to other APS students, how your child compares to state students, and then how your child compares to nationally students. So that's the way the report goes. And again, you guys will be getting an initial report with your report cards that get mailed home this summer, followed by a final report that is usually posted in SLDS. So in Infinite Campus. So if you don't have access to Infinite Campus, you need to talk to Ms. Gabrielle to get your code because that's where all your child's information is housed. Parent supports. So there are some guides that the Georgia DOE puts out on how to look at how responses are constructed and how things are scored. So if you want to go down the rabbit hole of knowing like what questions look like and what is a good response, this is going to be your best bet. That is the first link that I put into the chat. I'm going to re-put it in the chat right now. So again, that first link is the one that will give you question types and how scoring looks. At home, my recommendation is for you to practice with your child on the Georgia Experience Online. That really just gets the child used to the test. So this year we went to doing our formative assessments online to give students more experience with testing online, especially with math. Like how do you use your paper while you're doing your work? How do you transfer your knowledge from the paper to the screen? So we've really tried to kind of amp up our students' experience with working online so that they would be more ready for this type of assessment. As this type of assessment is becoming the norm, you know, there's even in college, I have a niece at University of Georgia. There's no blue books anymore. Everything's online and closed circuits. And so, you know, they really have to understand how to get their information from the paper in their head into a platform. Another great way to help your child is to read. Read anything. The more a child reads, the more a child learns. So even reading to a child helps them experience things that they possibly are or are not experiencing at school. So just read. Vocabulary practice. There's some technical vocabulary that is out there, especially in math. And if you look through the standards or ask your teachers, some of that technical vocabulary can be given to you for you to practice. So, you know, does a child know what decomposition means? Does a child know what the difference between a main idea and a detail is. So making sure that they understand that vocabulary, which we work on at school, is very helpful too. The other thing is typing. So I give you two websites here to help a child with typing because they do have to type. They actually have to type out their constructed responses. So learning.com and Typing Web both are free typing websites that you can use to have a child start working on those. The other thing too is don't have your child cram for a test. So if you know ELA is coming up, please, 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 please don't stress your child out and have them start cramming for the test. Today is the 10th, and we've got about 20 days until the assessment starts. So if you want to start practicing that vocabulary and stuff, start practicing it now. Don't wait until later. So other ways you can support your child. Acknowledge testing anxiety. So it's a real thing. The testing anxiety, the kids are freaking out, the teachers are freaking out. We try to minimize that at school by not pounding on the fact that they're taking a test, but kids still feel it. So just encourage your children to do best. Make sure they get adequate rest. Make sure they go to bed at a reasonable time. Encourage them to stay relaxed. Any pointers about deep breathing that you can give them are good. I always encourage the teachers right before the test to do some type of mindful activity with the kids. So again, we can bring that anxiety down. And then I want you to focus on the positive. So I want you to let your children know they can do this, and that they are prepared. All the information they've learned this year is on this test. It's nothing else. They've been at school most days, every day this year. They are ready. Go over test taking tips with your child. So test taking tips, for example, like cross out the ones you don't know. There are tools online where they can cross through answers that they already know. They can go back and forth in between pages. So again, teaching those test taking tips of crossing out things and then making your best educated guess, reviewing your answers are always helpful. Nutrition influences how well a child does. We will be serving breakfast. Our breakfast will go a little bit later on those days to make sure everybody gets breakfast. But if you make breakfast at home, please make sure that students get a good, healthy breakfast. This is a hard one for me. My child does not like to eat breakfast. So even a granola bar is better than what he typically gets on a regular day of school. So I highly recommend, again, making sure you get some breakfast. Please make sure your child arrives to school on time. We did map testing in the spring and winter, and we started at 8 o'clock, and we had a lot of students arriving late. These tests, once they start, and a child will have to take a makeup test at a later date. So please make sure your students are at school by 8 o'clock. Encourage your students to listen to directions and ask questions that they have if they're unclear. And then just the simple things. Please don't make doctor's appointments or dentist appointments during those 2 weeks. We will be testing, and a child will have to do makeup. And when we talk about testing anxiety, a lot of times not taking the test in the environment that they're used to taking it in is hard on students. So again, please, 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 please try to get into school on time. Most important thing to remember before all else is to make learning a positive experience. If kids are constantly living in fear of testing, this will hinder their learning process and knowledge absorption abilities. So again, please just make sure that you are not stressing your child out about coming to school and taking this test. Again, think about those positive words like you've got this, you've learned it, and you can do it. All right, at this time, I am going to stop my presentation, and if anybody has any questions, I would love to hear from y'all. If you want to come off mute and ask questions, you can do so.
Ms. Stevenson, I'm also dropping the sign-in link. So parents, if you can sign in, that will be great. We will greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, I might have come in late. I just had a question. You said how long is the test? Like days wise? Not.
So day-wise, it depends. So testing starts on the 29th, and third through fifth grade are going to be tested on the 29th through that Friday. So look at my calendar. I should know this off the top of my head, but the 29th through the 3rd will be third through fifth grade, and fifth grade will also test on the 6th. And then fourth grade will go the 6th through 10th. And then any day that's missed when the testing period is over, we will go back to doing makeups. I can actually go back and show you that calendar so you can see it.
Thank you. I apologize. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. That's a great question. So let me show real quick so you can see the calendar. The other thing too is I have a parent letter that's going to go home. I was going to send it home tomorrow, but I'm most likely going to wait until next week just so that the information's a little bit more fresh. But this is the testing calendar that you will get when you get that parent letter. And again, it's most likely going to come home next Friday, just because I want to get it closer to the date. So it's more on top of mind and not something to file away. So it's one section every day. And typically the sections are around an hour, give or take. All right, if there's no more questions, we will end there. If you know of anybody that missed it because they couldn't log in, I heard there were some login issues, please let them know that we will post it, and I will put the information in Dojo on where it's posted once I figure out where to post it.
And don't forget to sign in. Thank you so much.
Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Stevenson.
How many people are you normally getting?
Well, it varies. Sometimes we will get one person, or the first time we had I think we had 8 people the first time.
Okay.
And some sessions at last session we didn't have anybody show up.
Interesting. I normally have like